Good evening, everyone. It is great to see everyone back for our last night of VBS. And I'm really sad, but hey, Double String's motto is love God, love people. And we welcome everyone back. And it's great to see everyone tonight. Our midweek Bible study is 6:30, normal time that we've been starting VBSs. And on Sunday mornings, our Bible classes start at 9 a.m., followed by our worship service at 10 a.m. But our first song for VBS tonight, as we wrap it up, it's going to be I've Got the Joy. Y'all ready for this, kids? Come on, let's stand up. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Down in my heart. Down in my heart. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. To say, I've got the love of Jesus down in my heart. Where? Understanding
morning, folks. Ricky here reporting live from the Philippic Village. It's a beautiful day here at Double Springs, and the excitement is in the air. I can really feel it. This is the kind of feeling I get when I watch Star Wars, to be honest with you. I just get pumped up. Okay, we're ready for another day of competition here. With me is Danny. How are you feeling about today's event?
Well, Ricky, thanks for having me again. And I just finished my day with my morning routine where I was spending time in prayer, and I just feel like I can face anything right now.
You know, I've noticed you've had the same routine each morning. Could you tell us a little bit about it? Especially the prayer part. I'm very intrigued by that.
Well, you've heard me say a bunch of times this week about how my inspiration comes from Daniel in the Bible. You know, he ended his day by praying to God, or in his day in general, at least 3 times, and it worked out for him, so let's see what happens to me.
Interesting stuff.
I'm tired of playing second. It's time to level the playing field. I've got just the plan. Gentlemen, I've got a hefty prize for you. You know, Danny's been taking the lead this whole time, and it's time to put that to a stop, okay? So, I've got some hefty bribes for you, and guess what? This is going to ensure a fair competition, free of any advantages that Danny might have. And so the way the rules work is, Danny, he's been praying, okay? And this prohibits any athletes from extorting in any religious activities before, during, or after any events of the remaining events, okay? And if the rules are to be broken, they'll be thrown into a giant pool of piranhas.
Interesting proposal, Leo. Well, all of a sudden in the change.
I've got my reasons. Danny won't stand a chance.
Oh, look. A gift card to Shoney's. Oh! Terry Coomer.
Oh, but wait, Mr. Olympic official. Check out the back, though.
Oh.
Pleasure doing business with you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting.
Anytime.
Yeah, interesting.
Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news, breaking news. As the athletes prepare for the next event, a controversial new rule has been implemented by the Olympic judges. Athletes are now forbidden, and I mean forbidden, from engaging in any spiritual practice or activity before, after, or any time during the event. With that, if he breaks the rules, he's in a threat of getting thrown into a pool of piranhas.
Aha, Danny! I caught you! Hey, look at that!
Danny, you have been caught violating the new rule. As a punishment, you will be thrown into the swimming pool of piranhas.
Danny, I've been reading this just a little bit about this Daniel guy. And since you've talked about him so much, just like Daniel was delivered from the lion's den, your God, whom you serve continually, will also deliver you from the pool of piranhas.
Look! He's unharmed!
How in the world is this possible?
What's wrong? Hey, what's wrong, Leo? You look a little defeated. Folks, just like Daniel in the lion's den, Danny's unwavering commitment to his faith in God has led him to his deliverance. Training, diet, discipline, and obedience and commitment are important, but spiritual strength is invaluable and worth more than any gold, silver, or bronze. And for the last time this week, always remember, be a Philippian, rise to the prize. This is Reporter Ricky signing off for the last time. Thank you.
We got one more song. So what was that song again? Oh, Booster. Well, last night we got it the first try. You guys nailed it. You think you can do it again tonight? Oh, that was pretty weak. I don't know if you can do it or not. Booster, booster, be a booster. Don't be I stand corrected. You nailed it. First time around. Awesome, guys. All right, let's dismiss to our classes, beginning with our littles, our cradle roll. There will be a toddler's class tonight. College class. I thought, I'm looking at the toddler class. There will be a college class tonight, guys. Let's get our toddlers. And parents, please don't forget, we dismiss at 7:45. 7:45 if you would be over in Christian Cove to pick up your children at 7:45. I'm sure the speaker in here will let you go early enough. Pre-K. Let's get our pre-Ks in class. Oh, we did forget to announce that tonight, didn't we? Maybe we'll get the numbers up. All right, K2. K2. Follow along. One behind the other. Here we go. Yes. Three fours. Grade 3, grade 4. Y'all come on. Right behind them are grades 5 and 6. 5 and 6. Last but not least, our 7 through 12s. 7 through 12. It's hard to believe that this is the last night. There's a lot of work put into it, and just has flown by. We've really had good attendance. You know, I've been to several speaking engagements and heard several speakers, and there's one thing I've never heard said. I sure am glad I'm following Matt Miller. I've never heard that anywhere, and I know why. So, you've got me tonight. The joke was that originally I was technically a visiting speaker because I was gone so often, but here lately I've got to be able to be here more often, and it's good to be here tonight. Let's do a recap. Sunday night, lesson was entitled Stand Up. And the main points that he made is the mind is powerful and the way you think matters. That we need to believe that our mind needs and is worth protecting. Night 2, Sean Flatt. Powerful prayer begins in faith. Oh, it's not wishful thinking, and it's not me telling God something He doesn't know, and it certainly isn't about your posture or your phrases. One of those phrases that I don't know, I find amusing each time is we pray before the meal, want God to bless the hands that prepared the meal. What about the rest of the person? We don't want to bless them too? But those are phrases that we use. And it's not about that. Powerful prayer includes community. You praying for others and asking others to pray for you. Powerful prayer is wrapped in thanksgiving. Then last night, in Daniel chapter 5, Matt told us that your light can shine in darkness. And we need to honor God. We need to fear and revere Him. And he made this statement. Failure to honor God is the basis for sin. Failure to honor God is the basis for sin. Tonight we're going to talk about Daniel chapter 6, probably one of the most famous stories in the book of Daniel. But before we get there, I want to share something with you. I went about and I asked some folks, what comes to mind when you hear of the story of Daniel in the lion's den? I started with our teens and preteens. Here's what they said. Promise, faithfulness, alarmed, trust in God, and unwavering faith. Our young adults, college age and middle age, faithfulness, courage, trust, faith, and strength. And then I jumped a little bit and I picked folks who were retirement age and older. Here's what I got from them. Faith, scared, trust, shutting your mouth. Unwavering faith. Did you catch the theme that went across there? Faith and trust. From our folks who are pre all the way up to those who are retirement age. We're doing a pretty good job of getting the main point of Daniel across. So tonight, I hope to come at it maybe at a little bit different of an angle. Maybe look at some things we haven't thought about before. Faith over fear. That was one of the things that our young adults gave. In fact, that title came from Aubrey Owen. That was her response. And I thought, that's it. That's my title. That's what I've got to use. So if you want to turn to Daniel chapter 6, that's where we're going to be tonight. Obviously, for time's sake, we can't read everything, and most of the verses that we're going to look at will be up here. But I want you to follow along with me, please. First thing I want to do is I want us to set this story up because it's very important that we have some things in mind before we start reading through here. We've already been told about how these young men, Daniel and his 3 companions, were taken off into captivity. History says that they may have been as young as 13 years old. That's barely a teen, folks. That young, taken away from their home country, taken away from their families, and put in a foreign land. Think about that as we go through this story. But the thing that you need to remember is Daniel is a foreigner. He's an outsider. And it's going to be important that we remember that as we start through this story, because that's going to play a major part in what happens. He served 3 kings now. We started out with Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, and now we're in Darius. Daniel is no longer a spring chicken. In fact, when you look at the timeline of the kings, he could be in his early 80s. So he's no young man anymore, folks. We need to know that Darius is self-centered. Now, this verse isn't up there, and I want us to read it together. It's chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, because it's very important that we understand the mindset of Darius. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps, to be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 governors, of whom Daniel was one, that the satraps might give account to them, that so that the king would suffer no loss. Not so that the provinces would be ruled fairly, not so that the people would be taken care of. No. So I don't get anything taken that shouldn't be taken. Darius is all about him. Make sure my interests are represented, and you make sure that things are accounted for the way they're supposed to be. He's self-centered. That's important that we remember that. Verse 3, Daniel is poised to become number 2 in the nation, right under the king. Sound familiar? Story of Joseph. He became number 2. He is right there on the verge. But go back to number 1, the very first thing we talked about. He is a foreigner. He is an outsider. And what is human nature when the foreigner or the outsider starts getting a little power, a little prestige, taking away some of my popularity? What is human nature to do then? It's okay, y'all can answer. Jealousy. And what normally happens, what comes from jealousy? Do you just sit around and pout about it? Say it again. They retaliate. So that's what these men have decided to do. Oh, we can't let this foreigner. Can't you hear him now? I'm not going to let some foreigner be my boss. We got to do something to get rid of this guy. He's not one of us. But here's the problem. When we look at the character of Daniel, this is what the ones who want to get rid of him, these are his enemies. Here's what they have to say about Daniel. Then the high officials and the satraps sought to find a ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom. But they could find no ground for complaint or any fault, because he was faithful and no error or fault was found in him. Folks, they went trying to dig up dirt. They tried to find skeletons in the closet. They tried to find scandal. And they came up with a goose egg. Nothing. We can't find anything on this guy. Now, I hope I don't get in trouble here, but if Daniel was promoted the first time, let's say he was even 20. I think he was younger than that, probably 17 or 18. Let's say he was promoted at 20. Now he's 82. How many politicians do you know have 60 years of service and have no skeletons or scandals? 60 years of service, and you can't find a thing wrong with this guy. Wow. What an amazing, amazing character he had. So what did they decide to do? Verse 5. Then these men said, we shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God. We're not going to find anything wrong with this guy, so we've got to figure out a way to take his faith and use it against him. Read between the lines here, folks. We know he's so faithful. We know what he's going to do. We know how he's going to worship his God. So the only way we're going to get him is if we make something up that he's not allowed to worship, because he's not going to waver from it. He's going to do it. And that's the only way we're going to catch him. Wouldn't that be awesome if somebody said that about us? The only way that they can find a fault is the fact that you serve continually, daily God. That's the only fault people could find in you. We've already learned that there's statues, that there's gold, there's silver, there's wood, there's bronze, all these different idols to worship. Folks, they're in a land where it doesn't matter what you worship. They don't care. Worship any way you want to. And that's why Daniel has been able to worship his God without any problem so far. But they decided, well, just like our skit tonight, we've got to come up with something. And this is the only way we're going to get him. Blinded by pride, they're fixing to set the king up. Remember what we said about him. He's self-centered. It's all about him. Listen to how they approach him. In Daniel 6 and verse 7, all the high officials, really? All? Okay. All the high officials of the kingdom, the prefects, the satraps, the counselors, and the governors are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an injunction that whoever makes petition to any god or man for 30 days, except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. They're playing on his pride. Folks should be worshiping you, king. But their statement is based on a lie, is it not? Their first word is all. Guess who's missing in this council? Who's not there? Come on, folks. Say it loud. Who's not there? Daniel. Nothing new. Nebuchadnezzar has his dream. All the folks come before him. Nobody can do it. They have to go get Daniel. Belshazzar sees the writing on the wall. All the wise men come. The queen says, wait a minute. They can't do it. I know a guy. Let's go get Daniel. You see the theme here? Because he's an outsider. He is a foreigner. He doesn't fit in with us. We're going to leave him out. The problem is, he's the only one that can fix it every time. They're slow learners. Everybody who stood against Daniel has failed. And here they go again. 30 days. Lynn, let's put a policy in place for the school board, but it's only good for 30 days. Somebody proposes that for 30 days. You ready to jump on that with both feet? Somebody comes to you and says, we just need to do this for 30 days. A law that's made for 30 days. Does that not catch your attention? Why just 30 days? If it's a good law, shouldn't it go on the books and stay on the books? Red flag, folks. But he's blinded. The king is blinded because he's self-centered. They're going to worship me. For 30 days, he doesn't see the setup that we see coming. He's oblivious to it because of his self-centeredness and his pride. Listen to how they get him. Now, O king, establish the injunction and sign the document so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be revoked. Hey, I need you to sign this right now. Somebody comes up to you with a contract. I need you to sign this right now. Just put your name on it. Don't worry about reading. Just sign it right now. That's what they're doing to the king. How many of us would jump on that? Yeah, let me sign that. I don't need to read it. Yeah, I trust you. We wouldn't, would we? And that's what they're doing. Hey, do it right now. Come on, hurry up and sign it. Hurry up and sign it. And they set him up here too, so that it cannot be changed. Once you sign it, king, it's enforced for 30 days. 30 days. You ever thought about how dangerous that is? Putting a law that cannot be changed? Let me share some with you. In Nacogdoches, Texas, this law is still on the books today. Under no circumstance can a young lady have a raw onion after 6 p.m. Can't do it. Oh, it gets better. Let's move to Kansas, where we can't put ice cream on our cherry pie. Folks, these are laws that are really still on the books. You cannot put ice cream. Who thought that was a good idea? In California, it's illegal to eat orange while you're taking a bath. Who cares? It's your tub. In Georgia, it is illegal to consume chicken by any other means than your hands. Don't go to a restaurant and get out your fork and knife and start eating chicken. Now, I'm sure that was a time when it was always boned chicken. Can you imagine, you've got your fillet of chicken now, and you've got to pick it up and eat with your hands. I don't know that would work too good with the mushroom gravy and all that. It'd kind of be, but that's on the book. You see how dangerous it is to put a law on the books that cannot be changed? All right. If you got anything in your hands, take it out of your hands right now. I do not want stuff thrown at me. In Louisiana, it's illegal for a woman to drive a car without her husband waving a flag in front of it. You didn't need to throw anything. That look told me everything. Do you see how dangerous this is to have a law that cannot be changed? And we have these silly laws that are still on the books, and you wonder who thought those things were a good idea. In the time of the Medes and the Persians, and by the way, none of these are actually practiced anymore, but they are still on the books. They have not been removed. But according to the Medes and Persians, if those were laws for us, they would remain forever. You can't change them. Do you see how dangerous that is? And yet the king doesn't see it. He is being set up. Well, it's signed into law. This section I entitled Just Another Day. Because you know what Daniel did when he found out that it was a law that he wasn't allowed to pray anymore? Verse 10, Daniel knew that the document had been signed. He went to his house, where he had windows in his upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he had done previously. Some of your versions will say, as was his custom or as was his habit. He didn't change anything. He did exactly what he'd been doing all along. Can you imagine his friends? And I'm sure he had some. They weren't believers in Jehovah and the God that he served. Hey, Daniel, dude, it's just 30 days. Just don't pray for 30 days. The law will expire and you'll be fine. Just don't pray for 30 days. That's what you need to do. Close your door. Close your window. Don't let them see you praying. All you got to do is just close it. Daniel didn't change a thing that he was doing because he wasn't ashamed of the God he served. God had never left him, and he certainly wasn't going to leave God now. So just like he's always done, where everybody can see. This isn't for a show. I know it's not for a show. Have any of you ever wondered why did he have his window open? Why was he facing toward Jerusalem? Because it was in Scripture. In 2 Chronicles chapter 6 and verse 38, Solomon is starting a prayer, and he's talked about when this people sins against you and when they're carried away in captivity. In verse 38, he says, if they repent, this is the ones that have been carried into captivity. Let me give you a second to get there. 2 Chronicles chapter 6. It starts in verse 36. When they sin against you. In verse 38, if they repent with all their heart and with all their soul in the land of their captivity to which they were carried captive, and pray toward their land, which you gave to their fathers, the city that you have chosen, and the house that I have built for your name. Now, I didn't have room, so I'm going to finish that because it doesn't finish until, the thought doesn't finish till verse 39. Verse 39. This is Solomon praying to God. Then hear from heaven your dwelling place, their prayer and their supplications, and maintain their cause, and forgive your people who have sinned against you. Why didn't Daniel close that window and pray some other way? Because he knew that this was what was supposed to be done. This is what is expected when they were carried into captivity, and he was obeying his God, no matter what man said. And you know, they this law for 30 days. They didn't have to make it for 30 days. They could have made it for one day, because Daniel was going to do what he was going to do. But I think they wanted to make sure we catch him. Just another day in the life of Daniel. Oh, the trap. They've been leading up to it. And now the king, well, his eyes are going to be opened. And he's going to see what exactly has been done to him. Daniel 6 and verse 12. Then they came near and said before the king concerning the injunction, O king, did you not sign an injunction that anyone who makes a petition to any god or man within 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? And I can almost see Darius stick his chest out. Yes, I did sign that into order. I signed it, and it cannot be changed. They're about to drop the bomb on him. And they're about to tell him about Daniel. We'll talk about that in just a second. Remember, when they first brought it to him, sign it so it cannot be changed. Didn't you sign a law that cannot? Yes, I signed a law that cannot be changed. After they tell him who it is, in verse 15, the king is dragging his feet. He doesn't want to put Daniel in the lion's den and not moving fast enough. And they come to him, and listen to what they remind him again. Here's the trap. Then these men came by agreement to the king and said to the king, Know, O king, that it is the law of the Medes and Persians that no injunction or ordinance that the king establishes can be changed. What are you dragging your feet for, Darius? You know what you've got to do. Why hadn't you already thrown him in the den of lions? Are you trying to get out of this? Just remember, you can't change it. You signed it into law. It has to be followed. Well, now what am I going to do? I've signed this law. The king, when he heard these words, was much distressed when they told him, hey, that Daniel, that foreigner, he doesn't give you due regard. Well, he prays to his God. He's not listening to you, King Darius. And when the king, when he heard these words, was much distressed. Some of your versions will say he was displeased, very displeased with himself. And he set his mind to deliver Daniel, and he labored till the sun went down to rescue him. You ever been mad at yourself for anything? I can't believe I did that. I do better than that. I sure have. And that's what he's going through now. How did it get here? How is this? He labored until the sun went down to rescue him. Now, we don't know exactly what time they came to tell him. But the scriptures indicate he labored over this for a while. And when you look at that in context, he is stressed and distressed and wringing his hands. And how can I get out of this? How can I get Daniel out of that? Well, that's the verse that you see them coming to him and then saying, King, you can't get out of this. It's time. You got to do it. So he does. Around sundown, a little bit later, he has no choice. He has to follow the law. It has to be done. Oh, and he does it with regret. He doesn't want to do it. In fact, when he takes Daniel there, he says, I've got to believe. Verse 16, it's not up there. Verse 16. So when the king gave the command, and they brought Daniel and cast him in the den of lions, but the king spoke, saying to Daniel, your God, whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. Now, folks, if he knows how strong Daniel is in his belief, and I truly believe he knew just as much as the ones that were after Daniel, why did he allow himself to get cornered with a law that was going to put Daniel in trouble? It's obvious he cares about Daniel. He's distressed. He's worried. In fact, in verse 18, the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting, didn't eat anything. No diversions were brought to him. Some of yours will say his musicians, his entertainment wasn't brought to him. And sleep fled from him. He couldn't sleep. Tossed and turned, walked the floor. What do you see missing there? What is it, Stacy? He didn't pray. I wonder why. Did he not have faith in his gods of gold and silver and bronze and wood? Why didn't he pray? Did he know that they actually had no power? And since he didn't really know the God that Daniel worshiped, he didn't know how to pray to him. But I want to propose something else to you. Maybe he's heard the stories of Nebuchadnezzar and how he was humbled because he didn't change. Or maybe he remembers, hey, I got this kingdom. I got this kingdom because Belshazzar was killed. What does this God have in store for me? Now, I don't know that that's the case, but I think it would be on my mind. Verse 20. He gets up. He goes to the tomb early. He wants to be there. He's anxious. And he comes to the tomb, and listen to what he says. As he came near to the den where Daniel was, did you catch that? He didn't get to the den. As he was coming up to the den, he is already calling out. This man was concerned. He should be. This is the best advisor that this kingdom has seen. The best and honest advisor, only one that he has. And he's scared to death. I've lost him. So he comes up to the den and he cries out in a tone of anguish. Oh, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to deliver you from the lions? Are you okay? Are you okay? The lion's den. Daniel answers him. My God sent his angel, and he shut the lions' mouths. They've not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you, O king. I've done no harm. Some of your versions will say that there wasn't a scratch on Daniel. You see, in a lion, it's not just his mouth that's dangerous. Those massive paws with those razor-sharp claws, they're dangerous too. So the Bible tells us he shut their mouths specifically. But when he came out unharmed, that means they didn't have their paws on him either. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us that. Everybody hear that? But in my mind, and I bet in your mind too, I know what Daniel was doing in that lion's den. Because that's just the kind of man he is. He's praying. And he's got it wrapped up in thankfulness because he's thanking God that they haven't hurt him. And I'm sure he's praying to God for wisdom and for guidance and to show him what he needs to do. God sent an angel, and those lions couldn't touch Daniel. In my mind, he's using one of them for a pillow. They kick Daniel out. The king is so happy for Daniel, but he is furious with the others. And folks, I have to wonder, while he was losing that sleep, thinking about how he's losing Daniel and how his most trusted advisor and how he's been duped by these guys, I wonder if part of the reason he can't sleep is he's figuring out a plan of how he's going to get them back. They've made a fool of the king. That cannot be. This is going to be known throughout history. They made a fool out of me. I wonder, was he deciding, what am I going to do to get them back? In Daniel 6:24, and the king commanded, and those men, and I highlighted that because I want you to think about this. Those men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and cast into the lions, into the den of the lions. They, their children, and their wives. And before they could reach the bottom of the den, the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces. Those men. That caught my attention. Any of you willing to answer, how many people did you think were thrown into the lion's den after Daniel? I mean, in your mind, how many? Come on, somebody be brave. 10. Anybody else? All right, back up with me. We read verse 1. There's 120 satraps. In verse 2, there are 3 governors. Verse 5. Then these men. Verse 4 says, so the governors and satrap. These men are all those advisors. These men. Go with me to verse 11. Then, here it is again. These men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. The same men. Verse 15. Then these men approached the king and said, you got to stick to your word, king. 3 times we these men, and it's been defined just before that who these men are. Verse 24. And the king gave the command, and they brought those men. Folks, you're looking at a possibility of 100 men, 120 women, and their kids. You're looking at a possibility of over 300 people being thrown in a lion's den. And not a single one of them made it to the floor before they were crushed. Their bones were broken. They were devoured. I've had the opportunity to be around lions. And when they get full, sometimes they'll just wound their prey and let it stay there until they're hungry again. Or they'll just lay in a circle around it until they get hungry again. Imagine, now we don't know how many lions were in there. And by the way, it's not like, it probably would be more of a lion prison. They kept them there. And just so you know, they kept them hungry. They fed them just enough to keep them alive, to keep them strong enough to be ferocious. They kept them hungry enough so whatever they threw to them, they devoured. Possibility of 300 people being thrown in there. They never make it to the floor. They don't run in and find a rock to hide behind. They don't start climbing the walls to get. They don't make it. The same God that shut the lion's mouth for Daniel opened it and gave them a voracious appetite to devour the enemies. That's the same God. That scene for those who were thrown in might have looked something like this. Those are real lions. That is a fence. That is not two. On the other side of the fence where they are is a national park in Africa for the wild animals. And they fed them there that day so folks could see them. Those are not captive lions. And you saw how they came running when that food was placed there. And I don't know if you can tell, but those lions are well fed. There's no rib showing. They're not hungry. And look how they pounce on that food, and they're protecting that food. And I don't know if you paid attention to the one that kept snapping and snarling at the people there at the fence. That's his warning. You better get away. You better not touch my food. Can you imagine what that scene was like with multiple lions? These are 3 males. Lions. And the screams and the cries that had to come from that cave. And many times we look at this and we think about this is a victory for Daniel. And it was a victory over the lions, I'll agree with that. But friends, this victory, it's not Daniel's. We've already decided that this book is a book about God. Daniel is a character, yes. His 3 friends are characters. The kings are characters. All these evil men that are trying to cause him harm, they're characters. The book is about a loving God. Listen to what Darius does in verse 25. Then King Darius wrote to all peoples, nations, languages that dwell in the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree, listen, that in all my royal dominion people are to tremble and before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. He's glorifying God. That's the victory. And not only is Darius glorifying God, he's saying, you all better do the same, because this is the real God. This is the one. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions. That's the victory. But you know, that is a recurring theme in this book as well. Daniel chapter 2. Daniel has just interpreted the dream. And the king answered and said to Daniel, truly your God is God of gods and Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this mystery. You see, Daniel has told him multiple times, whoop, 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 it's not me. This is God. God's the one that revealed this to me. I'm just a vessel. I'm just telling you what God has said. It's God. It's God. And Nebuchadnezzar actually recognizes and praises God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They're thrown to the into the fiery pit. Verse 29, and I'll get to chapter 4 and verse 1 in a minute. But verse 29 in chapter 3. Therefore I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut into pieces, and their house be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this. And then he makes a decree in chapter 4, verse 1, King Nebuchadnezzar, to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell on the earth, peace be multiplied to you. It has seemed good to me to show you the signs and wonders that the Most High God has done for me. How great are His signs, how mighty His wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting, and His dominion endures from generation to generation. Because of the faith of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar praised God. Because of the faith of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Nebuchadnezzar decides to sign a decree, you better recognize this God. And Darius recognizes God and praises God because of Daniel's faith again in the lion's den. Their faith had an effect on others. There's something different about these people. Why did they do what they do? And why did they believe what they believe? To the point that they're willing to go to death. If you remember, when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're asked by the king, who's going to save you from my hand? They said, our God can, O king. But if not, no, O king, we will not bow down and worship. Our God can. But even if He doesn't, we'll take that fiery pit. Daniel knows he's going to be put in a lion's den. I'm going to go pray anyhow. Man, think about what effect our faith can have on others with the example that we have here. Paul is talking to the Philippian brethren. Only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ. So whether I come and see you or I'm absent, I may hear of you that you are standing firm in one spirit, with one mind, striving side by side for the faith of the gospel. Here it is. And not frightened in anything by your opponents. This is a clear sign to them of their destruction, but of your salvation, and that from God. Faith over fear. Paul is telling, when persecution comes your way, don't you let them see you afraid of anything. Because if you do that, if you remain unafraid like Daniel did, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did, if your countenance shows you're not afraid, here's what it's going to show them. Their own destruction. But what it's really going to show them is that you know your salvation and you know it's from your God. Don't you dare let this see you afraid. You stand firm like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Tonight, what does our faith look like? What does my faith look like? What does your faith look like? There may be some here that haven't obeyed the gospel. You haven't acted on that faith. You haven't obeyed the gospel. You haven't been added to His church by God Himself because you haven't obeyed. And if you're here and you don't understand what it means to obey the gospel, please sit down with some of us so we can teach you and show you what that means so you can act upon that and know why you're doing and what you're doing. But are we here tonight, folks? And can we say we have faith over fear? Are folks affected by our faith? Do they see us? Oh, if that person says it, it's true. Man, you can't find anything wrong with them except they go to church all the time and they do all these good works and they pray to this God and they try to be good neighbors. Is that what they say about us? Is that what they say about me? You see, that's what the church is for. When you're struggling, we both spiritually and physically wrap our arms around you and say, we're here for you. That's what the church is meant to do. You have a bunch of people here who want to see you succeed in your goal of going to heaven. And if we can help you in any way to reach that goal, won't you come as we stand in 539, as we sing 539.
I heard an old story, how Satan came from glory, how He gave His life on Calvary to save a wretch like me. I heard about His groaning, of His precious blood's atoning. Then I repented of my sins and won the victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with His redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew Him, and all love is to Him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. I heard about His mansion He is built for me in glory, and I heard about the streets of gold beyond the crystal sea, about the angels singing and the old redemption story. And some sweet day I'll sing up there the song of victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with His redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew Him, and all my love is to Him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. Good to see everybody.